Come with us as we explore the depths of the sea.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the ocean. It's one of my personal favorite topics. And I'm always looking to learn new things, even if there is some mystery behind them.
Did you learn anything today?
I did.
Sweet.
I did actually, yeah.
Do share.
I will. Stay tuned.
Is there any ocean creature more intimidating and ferocious than the great white shark? The apex predator of the sea? Well, apparently yes. Back in 2003, scientists tagged this massive great white shark. They were studying temperature changes in the ocean. Well, several months passed, and the researchers found the shark's tag washed up on shore in Australia. They took a look at the tag's information, which revealed that about 4 months after they had tagged the shark, it had suddenly plunged 1,900 feet below. There was also a sudden spike in the shark's temperature, so it looked like something had attacked the shark and dragged it down before, putting it in its mouth. So the question was, what the hell had managed to attack and consume a 9-foot great white shark? Now, there are rare cases of cannibal great whites, and there are great white sharks that are much larger than 9 feet, so that was a possibility. Again, that's rare though. Great whites usually don't attack one another. Another possibility is that something else attacked the shark. Something else that we'd never want to run into.
Next up, we've got eggs and active volcanoes. In July of 2022, marine researchers decided to explore an ancient deep-sea volcano off Canada's Pacific coastline. And what they found was pretty cool. First of all, they discovered that the 3,600 foot tall volcano, 1,100 meters, was actually still active. And second of all, that it was covered in around 1 million eggs the size of American footballs. What kind of eggs? Skate eggs. And no, I'm not referring to a hockey player's breakfast, but rather a little known sea creature closely related to sharks and rays. The specific skates on the volcano are Pacific white skates, and they're super cool to look at. These creatures, along with many others living around the volcano, are able to survive and thrive because of the warm, nutrient-rich waters produced by the active volcano. The mystery here is how the hell this thing has stayed active for so long. How did we not know about it until now, and what else is out there? I bet James has some answers.
1968 was not a good year to be in a submarine. That year, 4 subs vanished, all within a relatively short time frame. The subs were the Israeli INS Dakar, the French Minerva, the Soviets K-129, and finally, America's USS Scorpion. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to these submarines, but this was the Cold War, so there's a good chance the fate of the US and Soviet subs had something to do with that. The Israeli sub ceased communication on January 25th of that year though, and the wreckage wasn't found until 1999. And just 2 days after the Israeli sub had originally gone missing, the Minerva vanished in the waters off Toulon in southern France. It was just an hour away from port, and this one wasn't found until 2019.
Next up, we've got the mysterious methane leak of the deep blue sea. Doesn't sound ominous or damning at all. Not. In August of 2022, researchers discovered that a massive amount of methane was bubbling up from the bottom of the deepest point in the Baltic Sea. You know, where the Baltic Sea anomaly that may or may not be an alien spaceship lies. But I digress. The team in charge of monitoring the methane reported that it was, and I quote, basically bubbling everywhere, covering an area of roughly 7.7 square miles or 20 square kilometers, which is around 4,000 soccer fields. And it's all happening at a depth of about 1,300 feet or 400 meters. Whole lot of numbers going on here. Anyways, researchers believe that the methane is coming from a large amount of decaying organic matter lying on the seafloor. But there's a lot of methane, so at this point in time, they aren't 100% sure. And they also have absolutely no clue as to why it is rising so high up. So it looks like we've got a mystery on our hands.
Back in 2015, the EV Nautilus, a San Pedro-based research vessel, discovered something pretty insane in the Gulf of Mexico, an incredibly deadly underwater lake 3,300 feet below the surface. It's this pit of high salinity water and dissolved methane, and anything that goes too close doesn't make it out alive. They just get pickled. The underwater lake formed millions of years ago when the area was much shallower and covered in salt beds left behind by evaporating water. Over time, these salt layers got buried under sediments, and the pressure caused cracks, allowing oil, gas, and super salty brine to seep out. This brine is so salty and dense that it doesn't mix well with the surrounding seawater. Instead, it forms its own underwater lakes, rivers, and even waterfalls. And around the edges of this brine pool, mussels really thrive actually. They cling to the mineral deposits, and these mussels have a special relationship with bacteria that live on their gills. The bacteria use gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide, which seep from the ocean floor to produce energy for the mussels. Now, while the mussels can live near the brine pool, the brine itself is extremely toxic to most sea life. It contains very little oxygen and high levels of harmful chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and methane. Any fish or sea creature that ventures into the brine is quickly killed and preserved by the super salty water, which is 4 times saltier than the surrounding ocean. It's really cool. You look at images of this place and there's all these like crabs that have been sitting there for like who knows how long. It's like a graveyard.
Next up, we've got the world's loneliest fish, aka the deepest dwelling fish, which just so happens to look incredibly cool. The species, believed to be an unknown species of snailfish, was discovered in April of last year, 2023. Scientists were able to capture video of the fish feeding in the Izu Ugasawara Trench near Japan at a depth of 27,349 feet. It was a groundbreaking discovery for marine researchers who up until then had only ever seen fish at a depth of about 500 feet above where this species was found. So how the heck do these fish survive at a depth packing such immense pressure that it would cause you and I to crumple up like a shiny ball of tinfoil? Well, I'll tell you. Snailfish are incredibly adaptive, so adaptive in fact that they have replaced their scales with a gelatinous layer that helps to absorb the pressure. And their chemical makeup has adapted to protect their cells from the pressure as well, so they're pretty much set. But it begs the question of whether or not we find an even deeper fish with even more gelatinous bits next year. Here's hoping.
Can't do a deep sea mystery video without mentioning at least one shipwreck, and this one is very intriguing because it seemed like there was some sort of bad energy attached to it. In the Gulf of Mexico, once again, there's a shipwreck that seems to bring nothing but bad luck to anyone who tries to explore it. ExxonMobil discovered this wreck while laying down a pipeline, and that was the last bit of good fortune they had near the site. When a team was put together to check out the wreck, everything started going wrong. Their exploration submarine malfunctioned just as it was about to dive. Problems ranged from video monitors failing every time they turned on the thrusters, to the sonar breaking down and the hydraulics going crazy, one after another. Then the Navy got involved and sent their own research submarine. This sub had its own set of issues as well. It pretty much destroyed its own rover as soon as it hit the water, and when it finally reached the wreck, its robotic arms were too short to grab anything of use, and these are just a few examples of the long list of failed attempts to explore the wreck. It seems like anyone who tries to get close to it is doomed to fail in some bizarre or frustrating way.
Next up, we have some unusual behaviors being displayed by a new mother. In June of 2022, marine researchers witnessed something they had never seen before while tracking a female squid who had just given birth in the waters of Monterey Bay, California. The mama squid was observed carrying her babies. Why is this strange? Well, because up until now, squids have only ever been observed abandoning their babies. Not in a CPS way though, it's just not in their nature to care for their young. And it has always been believed that once a squid lays its eggs, it leaves them to develop on their own. But of course, now there is video evidence proving that that is not always the case. Scientists observing the behavior speculated that maybe the mother was spooked, perhaps by the remotely controlled rover used to observe her, and she felt as though she needed to take extra precaution to ensure the safety of her offspring. But at the end of the day, they didn't ask her, so we really don't know the answer.
We've all heard about the legend of Atlantis. Well, Japan may have an Atlantis of its very own, Yonaguni Monument. This mysterious structure was discovered in 1986 by diver Kihachiro Aretake off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan. It's been heavily debated as to whether this place was naturally forming or not ever since. It's located about 60 feet beneath the ocean's surface. The monument consists of these massive stone blocks arranged in a way that really does look like it was done deliberately. You see what look like terraces and steps, all these columns and walls. The main structure is something that almost looks like a pyramid. This was why it's known as the Yonaguni Monument, and ever since these formations were first discovered, there's been this idea floating around, no pun intended, that the Yonaguni Monument is part of the remnants of a sunken city belonging to some prehistoric advanced civilization, like the lost continent of Mu, for example, dating back around 10,000 years. Mu's existence has never been 100% verified, and it's kind of in the same vein as Atlantis or Lemuria, but folks like university professor and researcher Masaki Kimura believe that the precision and arrangement of the stone blocks go far beyond what could occur naturally, and that these formations are likely from an ancient human settlement now submerged beneath the waves. But there are plenty of skeptics on the other side who say that it's all just formed naturally. They argue that the formations are more likely a result of some tectonic activity, erosion. People are just looking too deeply into it. Pareidolia, we look at things we don't understand and we go, oh, that looks like a house or a column of some kind, stairs. Well, I don't know. Personally, I look at these photos and I don't know, those look like stairs to me, but what do you guys all think?
And finally, to finish us off today, we have the mystery that is, how the hell are animals able to survive and actually thrive on the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, aka the GPGP? In 2018, while studying debris collected from what is essentially a floating island made of garbage, two scientists noticed something strange. Very tiny marine animals including crabs and anemones, animals that are normally seen on beaches and along the coast. So how the heck did they end up all the way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? No one actually knows. As a general rule of thumb, the open ocean is not at all a suitable environment for small animals such as crabs and anemones because there is not a lot of shelter to help them defend against predators. But now, all of a sudden, it seems as though these small animals have found shelter in our old bottle caps and chip bags. But again, how did they get there? Because surely these animals would not have been able to swim all the way out into the open ocean and then all the way up to the garbage patch. And yet it appears as though a whole new thriving ecosystem does very much exist there. Of course, it's possible that these animals latched onto the plastic when it first entered the ocean and then held on for months as it journeyed out to the GPGP, but again, that doesn't really line up with previously observed behaviors. Really, the whole thing is just one big what's going on to science and scientists.
Well, one day I plan on getting over my, I don't know if I ever want to do scuba diving. Something about not being able to breathe air just doesn't really excite me all that much.
I'm scared of getting the bends. Like if you come up too fast and the pressure and then you're bringing and you have to go in the decompression chamber.
Yeah.
Sounds not fun. If that's ever happened to you, let us know down below. And if we missed anything, cool ocean facts, let us know there too. I've been your host, Hannah Thompson.
I've been your host, James.
See ya. Sea like the ocean.
Ah.
Haha.